taking a look at the last page of our seminar, on question 9, if you have two pairs of whole numbers that have a geometric mean that's also a whole number, that means the two numbers have to multiply to be a perfect square. Because the geometric mean is the square root, so if it's a whole number, now, on question 10, here's a review from chapter 5. The orthocenter is where my altitudes intersect. So my orthocenter in this one's at B. So when they said the orthocenter is located at 6.4 from D, that means D to B is 6.4. And I can't find B to C directly, but I can find D to C, because I know 6.4 is the geometric mean, so that's 1s square, between 5.3 and, whoops, not and, I want to times it, and DC. So in other words, if I square 6.4, so I'll go 6.4 squared equals 40.96 equals 5.3 times DC. So I'll divide both sides by 5.3. And DC is going to be, let me see, if I take 40.96 and I divide it by 5.3, I'll get about 7.73. So I know D to C is about 7.73. Okay, now, if I want to find B to C, well, first off, let's find A to C. So we take 5.3 plus 7.73. That'll be about 13.03. So I know B to C is the geometric mean, so that's 1s square, between the entire hypotenuse, which we just got done saying was 13.03, and the part that's adjacent to it, which is 7.73. So in other words, BC squared, if I take 13.03 times 7.73, I get about 100.7. So then BC would be the square root of that, the positive square root of that, because I don't really care about the negative. And I'm going to say it's about 10. And that's what we'll get for an answer there. Now let's take a look at number 11. That one is a little bit more involved, isn't it? Okay. And the reason it's a little bit more involved is I don't really have enough information here to do any one precisely. Because I don't know the altitude y, I don't know the entire hypotenuse, and I'm missing the leg z. But I do know 8.5. So let's do this. Let's say, we know the entire hypotenuse is going to be x plus 8.8. So I know 8.5 is the geometric mean, that's 1s square, between my entire hypotenuse, x plus 8.8, and the part of the hypotenuse that's adjacent to 8.5 to the altitude, which is x. So in other words, well, let's take 8.5 and we'll square that. we get 72.25. Equals, distribute that, we get x squared plus 8.8x. Now that's a quadratic, but factoring it kind of out the window because of all those decimals. Let's complete the square from Algebra 1. So if I take half of 8.8 and I square that, I'll get 4.25 squared. And 4.25 squared is about 18.0625, we'll say. And I'll add that to both sides. So if I add that to 72.25, I'll get 90.3125. Now the whole reason I added that makes my polynomial, my trinomial, a perfect square, so I can factor that. So that's x plus, and we'll do the square root of 18.0625, which we said was 4.25. And then to get rid of the square, I take the square root. So I get x plus, I like to write the x on the left-hand side, 4.25 equals plus or minus the square root of 90.3125. Well, then I'll do is I'll subtract 4.25 from both sides. And I'll get x is negative 4.25 plus or minus the square root of 90.3125. So then x, I don't worry about x being negative, so I'm just going to take negative 4.25 plus the square root of 90.3125. And I'll get about 5.25. So in other words, now x is 5.25. Now that I know x is 5.25, if I add that to 8.8, I know my entire hypotenuse is about 14.05. So then I can say y is the geometric mean, so that's when I square. So y squared equals 5.25 times 8.8. So then y squared, if I take 5.25 times 8.8, I get about 46.2. So take the square root of that, and then the square root of 46.2 is about 7.98. And then to find z is going to be my geometric mean, so that's when I square between the entire hypotenuse, which I know now is 14.05, in the part of the hypotenuse that's adjacent to z, which is 8.8. So in other words, z squared, if I take 14.05 times 8.8, I get about 123.64. Take the square root of that. and I get about 11.12. Definitely have to do some work on number 11. So when I check your solutions, I will definitely be looking at number 11 to see your work. You don't tell me you can do that in your head. And I think that's it for your assignment. Okay.